I'm Barbara Peters. Welcome to this episode of the Criminal Calendar. I'm delighted to welcome back an old friend and an author I not only read but actually collect, my friend Archer Mayer from Vermont. Hi there.
Hi there, Barbara. My God, we were just thinking about when was the last time I was here. And I didn't have white hair. I remember that part, but that could have just been my Grecian formula kicking up. But that was a fair number of years ago.
It was. But as a matter of fact, you started writing your Joe Gunther novels in 1988, and
Correct.
I came into the book world in 1989, just in time to snag a copy of Open Season, your first book.
I'll be darned.
And there's a
I didn't
wonderful
realize that.
synchronicity here because
Yeah.
this is your 19th Joe Gunther, and this is my 19th year, or the Poison Pen has its 19th birthday. So it's very nice that we've done this together.
I'll be darned. I had no idea. Time truly does fly.
It does. And I remember you took pity on me once when I was whining away about the fact that I had missed one of your books and sent me a personal copy.
Well, the least I could do.
Well, it was very nice of you. There aren't many authors I do collect. And one of the reasons is not only am I crazy about Vermont, which is, I have to say, a state I think I've only visited once when we came to see
you
you.
came by my village and we went out to dinner, lunch together.
We did, and Brattleboro. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
It was a fascinating place to visit. But I was taken to calling you recently the heir to Ed McBain's 87th Precinct series,
Oh,
just because it's a recognizable
Yes.
kind of, I don't want to say label, but unfortunately branding seems to be what bookselling is all about these days.
Branding and buzz.
Branding and buzz. But I think police procedural doesn't sound quite as zingy.
No, no.
But more or less, you've spent 19 years exploring place
Yes.
and characters, but also I think you've always had a pretty rigorous grasp on how policing
Right.
actually works.
Yes, that's actually become enhanced over recent years because in a fit of, call it art imitating life or vice versa, although I started as a novelist, as you point out, in 1988, having been a historian before then, slowly but surely I became an EMT and then a firefighter and then a death investigator for the medical examiner's office, and then a police officer about 4 years ago. And so little by little, I find myself getting creepily close to my primary character, Joe Gunther, and wondering, oh God, what's next? If I knock him off, what is that, a suicide note?
Well, that's a macabre thought.
Well, I'm a macabre guy, gotta be. They're murder mysteries, for God's sake.
Well, that's certainly true. I think the last one I came to visit you in Brattleboro, you were a fire guy.
Yes, I was that for 25 years.
Right, but you hadn't, I don't believe, yet gone actually on into being a death examiner.
Not yet, no.
What is a death examiner?
It's actually a death investigator for the medical examiner.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I just say that precisely because my state-recognized label is local medical examiner. Well, what does that tell you? It doesn't tell you anything. What am I, examining medical? So it's a euphemism. It's a way of tiptoeing around what I actually do. And what I actually do is that when someone dies and it's not an attended death, meaning the doctor's not sort of hovering, sort of in the wings with the death certificate all prepared and ready in hand because you've had, triple trichinosis for 13 years and the doctor said you're going to die, and then you die. Well, then you can put triple trichinosis and everything's nice and legal and upstanding. But a lot of people either haven't seen their doctor for a year, have no doctor at all, or, of course, they're run over by a moose or something.
In Vermont,
In
anyway.
Vermont, exactly right, not that rare. Those are all unattended deaths, and they need to be investigated to find out what caused the death. And that runs the gamut from a 95-year-old chain smoker with a drinking problem who finally just turned his toes up but didn't have a doctor, to someone with 6 bullets in his chest. Both of those need investigating.
Okay, when you discover, is it your job to discover a cause of death?
Yes, I go to the scene. I go to wherever the body is. They can't move that body until I get there. By they, I mean the police. because the police, the state's attorney, district attorney, whatever you call it, depending on your area, and the medical examiner are a kind of three-legged judicial stool that monitor people's deaths and how they are documented. So the police are usually the first to be called. It might also be an EMT unit or whatnot, but certainly the police are going to be involved. Generally speaking, the police are the one who call me. Then I come to the scene. We get the state's attorney usually on the phone. They rarely show up unless there are a lot of paparazzi around, in which case then, of course, being politicians, they do show up. But otherwise, it's just the cops and me. Now, the cops, they're after something. For example, if it is the aforementioned 6 bullets in the chest, they want to find out who pulled the trigger. I don't care.
Right.
I just need to find out, was it indeed the bullets that did the job, or was he or she strangled first, or is there a will? I mean, in other words, I need to put something together that draws a line between what used to be alive and what's now currently dead. So there are elements of originality, such as the whole medical background, to which I have easy access because HIPAA doesn't apply to me. And then there are other things that the cops are very much interested in that don't interest me, but can help me out a lot in fulfilling my overall portrait of this demise. So we work as a team, and it's a wonderful relationship because I can do things they can't, they can do things I can't. And now, of course, since I'm also a cop, the connection that I have with these gentlemen, mostly, occasional women, but not very frequently, unfortunately, is intense and rewarding and familial and friendly, because it's nice to cross a threshold and immediately know who you're working with. And because I've spent time all these many years, first interviewing these people just to write novels, then interacting with them at car crashes and burnt buildings and whatnot, and then last but not least as a death investigator, we've all known each other for years and years and years and years. And in Vermont, which only has a population base of about 26 people, it's very easy to work in that environment.
Well, I see what you mean. You have sort of become Joe.
Yeah, isn't that creepy? Yes,
It
it's
is
quite
a little
weird.
creepy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
kind of interesting. As the death investigator, so you report then back to the medical examiner.
That's correct. He's my
What
boss.
constraints are there on you as a novelist in doing all this? Are there things that you can write about and things that you cannot? And is it clear what
Sure.
those are?
It's clear in my head. I never have to have that conversation with anyone because I've been dealing with discretionary matters for a quarter of a century. As an EMT, there was no difference. I would respond to, let's say, a family that died of carbon monoxide poisoning in a basement in which they were living. Well, then I processed that, having showed up to help them, but instead I had to help process them. I disappeared from the scene fairly early in those days because the medical examiner and the police showed up. But don't you think I took note? So what would I use? I obviously wouldn't use the real case because I just frankly find that distasteful and unprofessional. But can I use the setting? Can I use the pathos that I witnessed? Can I use a lot of the human interactions that I use in all my books? Absolutely. Because in a sense, Barbara, I'm not a mystery writer. I'm a social anthropologist who is really interested in conflict resolution situations. But you can't sell a book by selling yourself as that, you know.
True.
So I put in a car crash and a race and a bad guy and a good guy and all that sort of standard stuff, and make a murder mysteries.
Yeah, well, you've always been so meticulous about the way people have gone about the investigation. And of course, you've also built up not just Joe Gunther, your principal guy, but a team or people in his department, and people have gotten engaged in their lives as well.